Hello everybody and welcome to this short sharing on the learnings from the life of Saint Ignatius. While I share with you something about the life of Saint Ignatius, I will give you 6 different learnings that we can take. All of them begin with the letter R and all of them will have a great impact if we can put some of those qualities into practice in our own lives. Some of you may have seen who Saint Ignatius is, or some of you may have not seen a picture. Here are a few pictures of Saint Ignatius. Ignatius was not his original name. His original name was Inigo. Inigo was born in the year 1491 in this place called Loyola in Spain, and that's how he gets this name, Ignatius of Loyola. Ignatius is the name that he takes on later in his life. He was the 13th, also the last of the 13 children born to his mother, and his mother passed away soon after he was born. He was brought up by the wife of his elder brother. Interestingly, Inigo had a very vibrant youth. At the age of 15, he was sent as a page to this man, Juan Velázquez, in the kingdom of Castile. That man was the treasurer and he lived in the court of Castile. And there in the court, Inigo encountered many great people. There were people who had returned from military conquest, there were great and rich people, there were other court officials, there were pretty young women, and there were noble women there. And all of this had a great impact on Inigo's life, early life. He also started reading romantic books, romantic literature, military conquest literature, and his mind started getting filled with what he would do with his life. So he had a lot of fantasies as a typical youth. His youth age was filled with these fantasies, of I will become a man who joined military or who would fight these conquests. And in those days, they had small kingdoms. And in each kingdom, whenever they had a problem, there would be a fight or there would be a small war between one kingdom and the other. And they would have to protect their own small kingdoms, or they would have to protect their castles or their forts type of structures. And that was the type of life Ignatius started imagining he would get into. Also on his romantic side, he felt that he would probably marry a woman of a very noble or aristocratic family. And so he had these typical ideas of, wow, this is going to be my life, a famous life. I would make my name in military conquest. I would make my name with the people of the court, and I would really grow well in life. And he testifies to this in his autobiography. I'll read that statement that he makes. He writes it so beautifully. Up to the age of 26, he was a man given to the vanities of the world, and what he enjoyed most was warlike sport with a great and foolish desire to attain fame. These are Ignatius's words of how when he reflected over his life in the past. That is number 1. Remember this number. Part of Ignatius's dream was fulfilled when he became the military in charge in the castle of Pamplona. However, in the year 1550, there was a war between the castle and the French, and Ignatius was injured in that war. His knee was hit by a cannonball, but the French soldiers, seeing how brave this man was, did not kill him. They sent him to his home to recover just for the sake of his bravery. When Ignatius was at home, he took a long time to recover. And being a man who had read a lot, he wanted to continue his reading. He wanted those romantic books, he wanted those military conquest books. But unfortunately, in his house, there were only 2 books, Life of Saints and Life of Christ, both uninteresting to him. But since he had nothing else to do, he began reading those books. After some time, while reading those books, his fantasies kept playing in his mind. There were fantasies of his military conquest, there were fantasies of the young women, there were fantasies of the married. All these ideas kept cropping up into his head. And he started feeling that joy and happiness about those ideas. At the same time, he started having imagination of following the life of St. Francis of Assisi or following the life of St. Dominic, imitating Christ. And he had similar type of joy and happiness in his life. Then he began to notice that as the worldly thoughts began to disappear, one after the other, his happiness also began to go. And when the thoughts gone, he was quite empty. The pleasure, the joy, that happiness was very short-lived. At the same time, he started noticing when he had the thoughts of following Christ and imitating the saints like Francis of Assisi and Dominic, he found that the happiness remained even after the thoughts went. That joy and happiness remained. He started analyzing all of this. And so he had this thought, or he had this realization. One type of thoughts gave him happiness that lasted a very short time. And when the thoughts went, the happiness went. The other type of thoughts lasted a longer time. The thoughts went, the happiness continued. This brought him to one question: what is it that's going to give me this long-lasting happiness? And he came to the conclusion that if he went ahead with his military career, then he would have had happiness, but it would be short-lived. But if he followed Christ and he went ahead serving Christ and imitating the saints, then what he would have had was a long time of happiness. He concluded that if he got into these military exploits and lived that high way of life and got married, he would have had happiness, but it would be short term. Whereas if he followed Christ and he did the things that touched his heart from what Christ was doing, and he followed the examples of the saints, he would have had happiness, he would have happiness, and it would last for a long time. This is number 2. Remember this. I'll come back to this also. So he comes to this conclusion that he would follow Christ, and to follow Christ he would live this very ascetical type of life, following Christ in his footsteps. And because of that, he decides to leave Loyola and go to a far off place, another town called Manresa, because if he lived in his own town of Loyola, he's going to be seen by his friends and his known people, and they're going to laugh at him. So he decides to go to Manresa. In Manresa, he decides again to live in a cave, to beg, to pray, and to earn his money or earn his living begging, living that poor lifestyle of Christ. He also decides ascetical means no cutting of his hair, no cutting of his nails. He lived a very poor, miserable type of life. At the same time, he began writing his spiritual journey, what all he was experiencing. And from that, over the next 10 months, he writes his entire spiritual journey, which he puts down in a book, and that became his spiritual exercises. In fact, you may be surprised, but till today, what he wrote in those 10 months in the cave, we are still using here very much to guide us. And then he realized that growing that long hair, not cutting his nails, did not really help him. And so he cut his nails, cut his hair, got himself a little bit decent. That's number 3. His next aim was to go to Jerusalem. When he went to Jerusalem, and after walking in the places where Jesus was and he prayed, and he wanted to stay back in Jerusalem and do good work in Jerusalem. But because of the war, he was asked and forced almost to go back. Now he realized that he must serve Christ. But to serve Christ, he needed to learn Latin. But by then, he was almost 33. And so, to learn Latin, he goes and he sits with children who are between the age of 8 and 14. That's number 4. Then at the age of 38, Ignatius goes to Paris to study. While Ignatius was in Paris, he had 2 roommates, Francis Xavier and Peter Faber. Francis Xavier came from a noble family, and he also had those ideas of becoming a rich and a famous man. Ignatius did not counter those ideas, but slowly posed this one question to him: what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Slowly Ignatius convinced Francis to make the same 30-day spiritual exercises, and what changed in Francis, we know. Francis crossed the world and even came to India. With that nature of Ignatius, he was able to get another 9 young men and together they formed the Society of Jesus. This, my friends, is number 5. He shares this idea of going to the Holy Land and working there. And if they are unable to go there, then they would offer themselves to the Pope, and as the Pope would know best, he would send them wherever he thought it was necessary. And as luck had it, or fortune had it, or providence had it, they were not able to go to the Holy Land. And so they offered themselves to the Pope. After that, the Society of Jesus was formed, and it went on to spread across the whole world. Ignatius remained in Rome as the superior of the Society of Jesus, or the superior general, and he passed away on 31st of July 1556. It did not really bring an end to his work, or rather it just started what would go into becoming the Society of Jesus across the whole world. Here, my friends, is point number 6. All throughout Ignatius' life, there is a strong presence of God that he will realize. Initially, he was, okay, there is God, but that relationship was not so strong. But later on, once he starts noticing the presence of God, he'll bring out how God played a very, very active part in his life. In our lives too, if we see how God is present in our lives, we'll realize that every incident has a relation to another future incident. Looking at Ignatius, if he had not broken his leg, he would not be in Loyola. If he was not in Loyola, he would have not been able to discern what is right and what is wrong. If he had not discerned what is right and wrong, he would not have chosen the path to follow Christ. If he had not chosen the path to follow Christ, he would not have met Francis Xavier. If he had not met Francis Xavier, he would not have had the occasion of meeting others. If he had not the occasion of meeting the other men who formed the society, he would not have the opportunity to send them. If he had not the opportunity to send them across the world, there would be no St. Xavier's College and other institutes across the world. If that was not there, we Jesuits too would not be there. All along we'll find Ignatius recognizing the presence of God in every instance. Whatever be it, however good or however bad it is, the presence of God is there. And the 6 R's that I gave you, the 6 points where I told you point 1, point 2, point 3 and so forth. The first point number 1, I stopped at where Ignatius recognizes his desire. He recognizes the desire that I want to be famous. I want name. I want fame. My friends, that is very important for us at this young age to recognize, what am I running after? What is my great desire? What do I really want to achieve in life? The first R, recognize what is your great desire, or what are you really running after. The second, I stopped at when he was recovering in his hometown in Loyola. He reflects on the internal movement that is happening within him. What is it that is moving me? What is giving me this greater happiness, and what is giving me this happiness that is short-lived? A very, very important dimension of how important God is in his life. That is the time when he realizes that if he does something where what God is calling him to do, it would make a very big difference. And my dear friends, that's necessary for us. All of us are running after something, and if we do not reflect on what is really giving us happiness, all throughout our life we will be chasing happiness, but we will never be achieving anything. It will always be 2 steps ahead. Going back to my own personal life, when I came from a working background, initially even I did not bother. For me it was get a job, get married, live a happy life. Till I reached the time when I began reflecting, what is it that I really want and that will give me that happiness. And it's only after that reflection, even with a working career as an engineer, I realized that if I really make that choice to follow God more closely, more intimately, it would make a difference in my life. Everyone is not called to an intimate following of Christ in a religious or in a priestly or in a sisterly way. Some are called to follow God or to follow Christ through a married way of life, and some are called to follow God in a single way of life. The important thing is, can I reflect and see what is God calling me to do? If not, I will just follow the crowd. The crowd is saying get married, I will get married. The crowd is saying, okay, now let's live a single life. Don't take the responsibility or commitment of marriage, just be there. Or the crowd may suddenly say, okay, come on, it's time to all join religion, so we'll just join. No, reflect and see what is God calling you to do personally. The third was the cutting of nails, or the growing of nails, the growing of hair. He realizes that that's a rejection of ideas that are useless or redundant. He rejects those ideas, cuts his nails, cuts his hair, and makes that change in his way of living. We need to do that, my dear friends. We need to reject, we need to get rid of some of our habits when we know that they are not really helpful. The fourth one is when he sits with the children in school. He relinquishes his ego. He gives up his ego. If he had to say, I am such an elderly person, how can I sit down and study grammar with those children? He would never have sat down with those children, and because of that, he would never have been able to study his theology. He would not probably get into his master's program in Paris. For him, leave the ego. This is what I know is right. This is what I will do. Our ego is one thing that often holds us back. Get rid of that ego, my friends. The fifth one is he receives the company of everyone. He doesn't reject Francis Xavier because of Francis's lifestyle. He receives the company of everyone, understands them, and he goes into them from their own way of understanding and brings them out through God's way of understanding. And that is a very beautiful thing. He's totally non-judgmental. He just recognizes, or he receives people as they come to him and how God would look at them without really a judgmental attitude. And the last one is, he knows when he was a young man, he wanted to be a soldier. So he redirects that same missionary zeal to be a soldier, to be now a soldier for Christ. It is just a redirection of his original charism, his original desires to something greater. I want fame and I want her name. I have that drive and that thirst. That is what that actually made me that way. He puts that away, but he redirects that same energy into serving Christ. And then God gives him that name, God gives him the fame, and God makes him an immemorable man for all our lives. My dear friends, I leave you with these 3 R's that we can take from the life of St. Ignatius. I'll read them out. Recognize what am I running after. Reflect, what is it that gives me true happiness. Reject the ways that are useless. Relinquish your ego, or give up the ego. Receive everyone as they come to you, and redirect your own energies for the right cause. On this feast of St. Ignatius, I wish all of you a very happy feast, and may through the intercession of Ignatius, you find what God really wants of you to do in life. May God bless you and keep you in His care. Thank you.